got to keep going, don't really know where the world is gonna go.
All right, brothers and sisters, I love you.
But I'm going to set the record straight right now for you.
Are you ready for this? For those in the last video that, and other videos that think that the beehive is somehow tied in, is nefarious or maybe evil because it's tied in with Freemasonry and Freemasonry is evil. Well, I'm going to school you on something. It isn't Freemasonry that's evil. It is people that have used Freemasonry and particularly the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, which is involved in the Hollywood elites and politicians and sports and things like that. But it is not Freemasonry, and I'm going to get to the meat of what I'm talking about later because this is not what the video is about today. But I'm going to school you on something that you need to be schooled on about Freemasonry. Okay? Because it's not evil. The notion, and y'all are making notions, that the notion that Freemasonry is inherently evil fundamentally misunderstands the organization's historical roots and noble intentions. How old was Christ when he died? 33. Hence, 33rd degree Mason. What did Masons do? They built the temples. Okay? Christ, I believe, was not a woodworker like the Chosen. I believe he was a builder. He was tecton. He worked with stone. Maybe some wood too. But Freemasonry traces its symbolic and ritual heritage, brothers and sisters, back through ancient Egypt. Talk to Terrell Givens, talk to oh my goodness. I've had him on the program. Talk to Carrie Molstein. They will tell you the same thing. Jews lived in Egypt. As a matter of fact, Egypt was a very big empire for a very, very, very long time. Over 1,000 years, I believe. Yeah. And the Jews migrated there. There were actually Jewish communities there. And that's where a lot of the royalty got a lot of their ideas about the afterlife. But Masonry, Freemasonry, traces all the way back through ancient Egypt to the Jewish temple traditions, brothers and sisters, established by Solomon and David. Yes. 33rd degree Mason. They're talking about Christ dying at the age of 33 and resurrecting. Okay. Now Satan has inverted that and used that fraternity, I guess we could say, to do its evil bidding, but it's not evil. The early Masonic documents explicitly acknowledge this lineage with the Hallowell manuscript, stating that the craft of Freemasonry began with the Euclid in Egypt and came through the children of Israel while they were in Egypt. I read one of Carrie Molstein's books. There's a series of books. It's the Let's Talk About series. So Faith and Intellect was Terrell Gibbons' book, and I had him on, and I read that. And you gotta think. You gotta think hard. Terrell was a hard one to keep up with. The guy is he's very wordy. He etymology is his forte. And then Kerry Mulstein is Let's Talk About the Book of Abraham. Well, in his book, Let's Talk About the Book of Abraham, Kerry Mulstein, he talks about the children of Israel while they were in Egypt. Now, this connection isn't coincidental, folks. Ancient Egypt borrowed heavily from the Hebrew temple system, as evidenced by the Solomon's Temple, as evidenced by the striking similarities between Egyptian temple designs and the Tabernacle of Moses and Solomon's Temple, as a matter of fact, including outer courtyards, 2 large pillars at front entrances, sounding familiar, and inner sanctuaries. So you've got these Egyptians learning these sacred architectural and ritualistic principles from the Jews, who at one time possessed the true temple ordinances and priesthood authority. Far from being evil, brothers and sisters. Now, does Satan invert that and use it to his advantage? He'll take a fraternity and people do their backroom bidding. It's got nothing to do with what's going on there. Okay? So, far from evil. Freemasonry has preserved fragments, brothers and sisters, of this ancient wisdom through centuries, when the original temple knowledge was what? According to Hugh Nibley, lost. You know, when we wear the cap and the gown and the tassel and the robe when we graduate from college, that is what, according to Hugh Nibley, the false robes of the priesthood. So you've got perversions and satanic inversions, okay? So when Joseph Smith encountered Masonic ritual, it wasn't by coincidence. Heavenly Father wanted him to do that. He wanted him to learn. He wasn't borrowing from a fabricated system, but recognized corrupted remnants of original temple worship. And that is, God intended him to restore it in its fullness. Okay? It's kind of like, it's like finding little bits and pieces of music that belong to one song. And you find the notes. You've got maybe a room full of just paper, a room full of just notes everywhere, and paperwork where maybe ancient musicians wrote stuff down, and you put it together, and here's the music. Okay, he had to put the music together from fragments, brothers and sisters. And that's how God intended to restore it. The true temple to its fullness. So, early church members who were both Masons and temple participants immediately recognized, through the power of the Holy Ghost, the similarities and concluded that we have the true Masonry. We are Tecton. We are the stone people. Builder. We're the temple builders, right? Right. And that Masonry was taken from priesthood, but has become degenerated. And that's what they knew. This understanding aligned perfectly with Jesus Christ being the ultimate architecton, the stone man, the builder, hence 33rd degree Mason. Christ. That's why the number is important. So be careful with your conspiracy theories, okay? Yes, Satan uses righteous principles and wants to demean them, okay? But the backroom dealing is what's really going on. So Christ is the master builder and chief cornerstone. The Greek word tekton, used to describe Christ's earthly profession, means builder or craftsman, likely referring to a stonemason who worked with the foundational stones of buildings. Christ declared himself the cornerstone that builders rejected. And Paul described himself as wise master builder, laying the foundation of Christ. We talk about foundations. We talk about Christ being the chief cornerstone, right? What's the Book of Mormon? It's the keystone. Stones, brothers and sisters, okay? Laying the foundation of Christ. In this light, brothers and sisters, Jesus could indeed be understood as the first and greatest 33rd degree Mason, the master of all builders, the architecton who laid the foundation, of both the ancient temple and the spiritual temple of the church, the true church. So yeah, there are evil people that are in certain rites of certain masonries, but the principles are just perversions that come from the true temple. So Freemasonry is not evil. There are evil people that do things in it, just like in the church. The church is not evil, but there are people that do evil things that happen to be members of the church. Okay, so I cleared that up. Now, I want to get heavy here, brothers and sisters. I'm going to get heavy. We're going to talk about fundamentalism and maybe where we're going, because things are changing. Are we going back to the Reagan years? Are we really so sure that the pushback to fundamental Mormonism, I'm just going to call it Mormonism for the sake of those who don't understand what I'm talking about, but the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, okay? Now, just because the prophet Russell M. Nelson has gone to the paradise to preach the gospel, or wherever he's at. I don't know if he's resurrected. I don't know where he's with Heavenly Father and Jesus Christ, or he's doing some heavy duty work. I'm sure he is. I got an itch on my back. Are we really sure? Are we really sure? So sure that the pushback to fundamental Mormonism, and I'm just, like I said, I'm using that, is just a fringe impulse, some relic of a past era? Or is there something deeper? maybe even necessary now? Like I said, are we going back to fundamentalism? Taking place beneath the surface. Why now? After all, this time when modern culture seems to promise comfort, freedom, and safety, do some feel the need to return to a hardline, even radical religious stance? Or is that unchristlike? Can't you think celestial and still not put up with people's crap? Didn't we do that in the Reagan years? Remember when we used to say compassionate conservatism? Is there something about unyielding conviction that calls to a society slowly being untethered from anything absolute? I think about Brigham Young. I think about Ezra Taft Benson. I think about President Dallin H. Oaks. I mean, yes, the Lord does a change of heart on them. He softens their heart. They become prophet, and they probably think even more celestial than they did when they were apostles. I don't know. I've never been an apostle or a prophet, so I don't think I'm qualified, but I can guess. But let's be honest. Mainstream religion, and especially the more accommodating versions of Mormonism, Latter-day Saintism, often gets watered down to feel good platitudes and endless compromise. But maybe that's not what people crave or what their souls need. Maybe what's truly radical in this age of compromise is a refusal to submit, a willingness to endure unpopular principles rather than bend before the pressures of modernity. Now, you're probably asking, what the heck do you mean by that, Troy? I'll explain. Think about this. In the words of Joseph Smith, when the Lord commands, do it. When the Lord commands, do it. It's almost painfully simple. And yet, all around us, most people seem obsessed with justifying exceptions, seeking loopholes, and making their faith as comfortable as possible. Brothers and sisters, I believe in everything President Russell M. Nelson taught us, to be tolerant. But tolerance doesn't mean lay down. He even said in one of his talks, I didn't say peace at any cost. Or was it peace at any price? Maybe that's the very thing that weakens conviction, community, and like a personal conviction or personal meaning. When everything is up for negotiation, is anything really sacred? Once again, when everything is up for negotiation, what is sacred? This is one of the reasons I took time off. The gospel is true, But people have had enough of wickedness. Talk about the question of absolute truth. What is absolute truth? Is that a question for you? Do you ever ask yourself, what is absolute truth? When was the last time you let an uncomfortable truth really challenge your life choices? Or have we all, in subtle ways, become laggards, borrowing from innovation theory, who avoid tensions and hard stances, fearing rejection more than loss of meaning? Did you see this?
Can you tell me what I said that annoyed you? Just give me one thing. One thing.
You need putting my people down. Come on. You know what I mean.
Just give me an example
There's so many.
that I've actually said.
So many.
No,
Look,
give me one.
you know.
Just give me one. Give me one more.
That-
Give me one example. Because if you, mate, if you've been upset with me, you must know why.
No, there's
Like
too many.
what? Like what, bro?
About my people.
Like what? Explain.
So here's the context. You've got Tommy Robinson wanting to sit down and have a lunch at a KFC somewhere in England. Not sure exactly where. Here's this Muslim guy comes up. He's holding his... I don't think he's holding a knife or a screwdriver. I think those are his keys. But he's confronting Tommy and he's calling him violent. He's calling him racist. And Tommy's asking him, name one thing that I've said against that's bigoty or racist.
I'm
not supposed to be here.
I've never said that. That's a lie. I've never said that.
Yes, sir.
No, I haven't. I've never said that.
Yeah.
I've never said that.
I've said it and I've heard it.
I have a problem with men raping young kids. So you're not upset about that. So tell me what I've said that you've done.
Stuff about my people.
Like what?
About Muslims.
What have I said? What have I said? About Pakistani people, I've said that they're overrepresented in raping young kids in this country. Massive.
Yes, but Lord, they
Well,
have
they're
everything.
90% of convictions are Pakistani Muslim men. 90%. 90%. That's a fact. 9% of
That stirring part is
Tell them the truth ain't stirring, but
No. We're all on the truth.
Okay, so
We're all on the
what
truth.
should we do? What should I have done? Ignored all these gangs? Should I ignore the 40,000 terrorists? Or what
Work
should
with the people. Work with the people.
Everyone's trying to sort how, when by talking about it, offends ordinary Muslims like you?
So Tommy's trying to have a regular conversation with this guy. He's debating like if he was a talking head on a program or a podcast or something. And this guy doesn't want to believe statistics. You know, that's one thing I like about Larry Elder. Larry Elder will give stats, facts. So will Thomas Sowell. Tommy's giving facts. And he starts spitting out real stuff. Well, this guy doesn't want to believe it. He denies it. And then he gets violent.
You know what?
White girls are getting kidnapped in every
You
town.
from Luton, yeah? You know what time it is. You know exactly what time it is.
You take this, you've come up to me and said, I want you to leave. Never said it.
You said a lot of stuff.
No, I've spoken honestly. I've told the truth about an ideology. I've told the truth about things that are in the book. And I've told the truth about problems in towns and cities. That doesn't mean I hate you as an individual.
Message better.
That's
I
hard.
wouldn't put you, because obviously you're on fingers, I wouldn't put you definitely on notice. If I wanted to smash you, if I said cameras, I would have
What are you talking about? What are you going? What are you talking about?
I would have done so.
Watch this.
I'm just saying
It
it.
wouldn't happen, bro. It wouldn't happen.
I'm just saying
It wouldn't happen.
It would have.
It wouldn't happen.
Believe me.
Why are you reading it?
The reason why I come in is because when you
You give
nodded
it
at
daggers.
no, no.
You give it daggers.
1 minute.
The whole time.
When you nodded
Yeah.
at me,
Yeah.
when you showed me,
Yeah.
you nodded at me,
Yeah.
and I thought to myself,
Mate, try and smash
as
me.
a
Try
man,
and smash me.
as a
You've
man,
come in here. Try and
as a
smash me.
man,
Try and smash me.
I'm gonna come in.
No, you've come in. You've come in. You've come in. I didn't have a problem. I sat here and eat my food. You've come in.
Yeah. I said,
If I want to, I'll smash you. Don't say it.
Pardon the language. Okay, pardon the language.
Unless you're going to do it. Are you going to do it? Unless you're going to do it.
the one that's making a scene.
Okay, unless you're going to do it, because I'm fed up idiots like you think I'm being intimidated by you, bro. I'm not intimidated by you. I'm not intimidated by you. I don't give a
This
fuck.
guy walks away.
I told you as soon as you walked over.
He says, smash me, man.
Do it then, bro. Do it then.
Stirring that you do.
You're stirring it. In fact, your arse goes.
He just wants to eat his lunch.
Tommy, that's
See you later.
No,
You ain't gonna smash no one. No one's gonna smash me. Not on your own, you won't. Not on your you won't. If there was another three of you, you won't.
I know why you're active,
Not on your own, you won't.
You know why
Not on your own.
Just keep staring.
Not on your own. You're a coward, mate. That's how it is.
Now, I didn't mean that violently. I did not mean to. I wanted to show that there is a sleeping giant being awakened, just like Pearl Harbor. If you ever watch Tora, the guy says, it's true. There was a Japanese man, I don't know if he was a commander or what rank he was, on one of the ships that were traveling to Pearl Harbor, but he had been educated and raised in the United States, and he says, you guys don't know what you're doing. You're going to awaken a sleeping giant. And I don't mean that by any race, creed, or people. We are Americans, no matter what color we are. We are Judeo-Christian. But this is good versus evil. And Tommy even says, I don't mean you as an individual, you're probably a good person. Nonetheless, the guy still wants to be violent with him. And you have to understand some of the concepts behind some of the ideologies. But anyway, I digress. I'm not going to get into that anymore. And I did not mean that violently, but I did want to show you, to prove to you a point about how people have had enough. In fundamental Mormonism or Latter-day Saintism, the principles are clear. Commitment, sacrifice, and sometimes even suffering. Look at the pioneers. Look at the people that suffered persecution. They didn't just lay down their lives. They gathered militias and fought back. That's non-negotiable, brothers and sisters. There was a war in heaven. I'd like to quote Joseph Smith again if I could. Hell may pour forth its rage like the burning lava of Mount Vesuvius. And yet shall Mormonism stand? God is the author of it. He is our shield. We are determined to endure tribulation as good soldiers unto the end. Close quote. I don't hear anything vague about that. Consider what Brigham Young taught. Mormonism, so-called, embraces every principle pertaining to life and salvation from time and eternity, no matter what, no matter who has it. If the infidel, what is the infidel? The unbeliever? The uncircumcised? The rebellious? If the infidel has got truth, it belongs to Mormonism. And oh, he meant it. Brothers and sisters, the truth and sound doctrine possessed by the sectarian world, and they have a great deal, all belong to this church. In other words, truth, brothers and sisters, truth. Truth is truth. Math belongs to this church. True history belongs to this church. Science belongs to this church. That's why we have the greatest mathematicians and scientists and doctors, heart surgeons the world has ever seen. Brain surgeons. As for their morality, many of them are morally just as good as we are. Talking about the infidel, right? All that is good, lovely, and praiseworthy belongs to this church and kingdom. Mormonism, or Latter-day Saintism, for those who have a problem with Mormonism. I'm using Mormonism respectfully. Includes all truth. Close quote. But notice he's not talking about compromise here. He's talking about absolute truth, brothers and sisters, finding its home in uncompromising doctrine. So here's the problem with modern comfort. Let's get real for a minute. Do you prefer a faith that admits its failings and openly struggles for relevance, or a faith that draws a line in the sand and dares its adherents to cross it? Why do we instinctively recoil from absolutes now? I don't think we're doing that anymore. There's a paradigm shift, brothers and sisters. And I'm along for the ride. That doesn't mean that I don't believe in thinking celestial. That doesn't mean that I don't believe that peacemakers and peacekeepers are needed. That doesn't mean I don't believe in charity. That doesn't mean I don't believe in forgiveness and tolerance. But I don't believe in recoiling. Is it our fear of being wrong, or our fear of being alone, or our fear of pain, physical pain, mental pain, death? Are you afraid of death? John Taylor, the third president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, put it this way: there is one of two things true. We are either laboring under one of the greatest delusions that ever afflicted the human race, or we are under the direction of the great God. Close quote. That's not a comfortable middle ground, folks. No. That's a binary choice that demands everything from you. And let's start by reading our scriptures. Let's start by getting on our knees and praying. But just because your bishop maybe doesn't like a politician that you like, it doesn't mean that you can't like that politician. We are agents unto ourselves. Joseph Smith said, I teach them correct principles and let them govern themselves. That's not a comfortable middle ground, is it? Binary choices that demand everything from you. What would your life look like if you decided, when the Lord commands, do it? That wasn't just a slogan, but the organizing principle of your days. Would things fall apart or come together in ways you can't even imagine? Brothers and sisters, this is the doctrine of eternal progression. Here's where it gets really interesting and really challenging. Lorenzo Snow, the fifth president, received what he called one of the most important revelations in church history. As man now is, God once was. As God now is, man may be. Think about the radical implications of that statement just for a second. Think about the radical implications just for a second, okay? We're not talking about salvation as some vague eternal rest. Okay? We're talking about apotheosis, literally becoming gods ourselves. Eastern Orthodoxy believed that. A lot of people think that Catholicism was the end-all be-all, but it wasn't. Lorenzo Snow described the revelation, quote, "The Spirit of God rested powerfully upon me and showed me more clearly than I can now see your faces, a certain principle and its glory, and it came to me summarized in this brief sentence. As man is now, God once was. As God is now, man may be, or man may become." That's not a metaphor, brothers and sisters. That's not symbolic language. That's doctrine that makes the Catholic Church look tame by a comparison. But here's the question. If that's true, if we're literally on a path to become gods ourselves, shouldn't that change everything about how we approach obedience? Shouldn't that change everything about sacrifice? Shouldn't we become more morally clean and maybe look at moral standards with more strict adherence? How can you take that doctrine seriously and still live a life of comfortable compromise? And I'm not talking about the sinner that screws up and then repents, because repentance and the atonement is part of becoming a god. I'm talking about the man who doesn't think he needs to repent, but doesn't want to ripple the waters, or doesn't want to get involved. Oh, that's too messy. The hard line on Revelation. Wilford Woodruff, the fourth president, made it clear. I, the Lord, quote, I, the Lord, hold the destiny of the courts in your midst and the destiny of this nation. This is a promised land, brothers and sisters. And I'm talking about North America. And all other nations of the earth in mine own hands. All that I have revealed and promised and decreed concerning the generation in which you live shall come to pass, and no power shall stay my hand. Close quote. That's not democracy. This isn't a conversation. This is theocracy in its purest form. John Taylor was even more direct. The principle of present revelation, then, is the very foundation of our religion. The Christian world rejects that. And you know what they say? They say the Bible is all sufficient. It's in the Book of Mormon, right? A Bible. We have got a Bible. We need no more Bible. But if you believe God still speaks, I mean actually speaks with real commandments and real consequences, then how do you justify picking and choosing which revelations feel comfortable if you go deeper than just economic principles, okay? Early Latter-day Saint doctrine included the law of consecration, literally giving up all private property to the church community. Brigham Young taught, quote, I feel to urge upon the Latter-day Saints the necessity of a close application of the principles of the gospel in our lives, conduct and words and all that we do, and it requires the whole man and the whole life to be devoted to improvement in order to come to knowledge of the truth as it is in Jesus Christ. The whole man, the whole life, not Sunday worship and weekday compromise. Complete consecration, brothers and sisters, to divine principles. I'm not saying I live it worthily myself. I don't live it perfectly myself. But what am I trying to say here? I'm saying, people are talking about fatigue. They're talking about, look what's going on in Britain. Look what's going on in different places. People are tired of wickedness. So you've got to live the gospel or you're going to be overrun, overtaken. How's that for radical in an age of individualism and materialism? The question of divine authority. Lorenzo Snow made this staggering claim. Mormonism cannot be destroyed. What have we to fear with regard to persecution and with regard to attempts that are made to destroy the principles of Mormonism? We know they cannot be destroyed, right? Brigham Young said you can only kick Mormonism upward. You can kick us, but you only kick us upward to heaven. Our enemies, if permitted, may kill the president of our church. They may kill his counselors and the 12 apostles. They may destroy the 70s and even the whole of the priesthood. But the principles of Mormonism, this is Lorenzo Snow, so that's why I'm saying Mormonism, they cannot be destroyed. The principles of Latter-day Saintism are eternal. They emanate from the God of heaven and never can be destroyed. That's either the most arrogant statement ever made by a religious leader, or it's a testimony to absolute, unchanging truth. Which do you think it is? And if it's the latter, what does that demand of you, of me? So the conundrum or the modern dilemma, here's what I find fascinating. We live in an age where people are, you see that they're desperately seeking meaning. And they're looking for purpose. They're looking for community. They're joining everything from CrossFit cults to political movements to find some bigger, better purpose, right, than themselves. Working out. You got the Liver King. You got this guy. You've got Andrew Tate preaching his thing. You got Jordan Peterson preaching his thing. You got Jesse Lee Peterson, who I find hilarious. I love that guy. He's teaching his thing. But they don't have it all. And they err. They err. Okay? Absolute truth, eternal purpose, consecrated community. They recoil because it demands too much. If a man does not have the gospel, eventually he will recoil. John Taylor understood this tension. He said, quote, "We are open for the reception of all truth, of whatever nature it may be, and are desirous to obtain and possess it. to search after it as we would for hidden treasures. Yummy. Yummy. Right? And to use all the knowledge of God that God gives to us to possess ourselves of all the intelligence that he has given to others. Close quote. But notice something here. You notice he's not talking about accepting all ideas as equally valid. No, he's talking about finding all truth and bringing it under the umbrella of revealed doctrine. So I said, I would say the biggest challenge is sacrifice. The biggest challenge is sacrifice. Lorenzo Snow taught something that should terrify comfortable Christians would be mortality is a school of suffering and trials. And I know that. I've been through them the last few months. We are here that we may be educated in a school of suffering and of fiery trials, which school was necessary for Jesus, our elder brother, who the scriptures tell us was made perfect through suffering. It is unnecessary that we suffer in all things, that we may be qualified and worthy to rule and govern all things, even as our Father in heaven and his eldest son, Jesus. It is necessary. Did I say unnecessary? I meant it was necessary. Suffering isn't an accident or a punishment. It's a curriculum. You're here to learn. You know what your school books are? Disease, punishment, abuse, alcoholism, cancer, divorce, wayward children, car accidents. I can go on, you know that, right? That's your curriculum. It's not something to avoid, and you can't minimize it. You chose to come here. It's something to embrace as necessary for divine development. How does that square with modern Christianity's emphasis on God wanting you to be happy and comfortable? Nah, we're not here to be happy and comfortable. But we're not here to put up with anybody's crap either. Let's probe deeper. If you wish to go where God is, you must be like God, or possess the principles which God possesses. For if we are not drawing towards God in principle, we are going from him and we are drawing towards the devil. So, like Mr. Miyagi said in Karate Kid, right side of the road, I'm probably not saying this right. Left side of the road, yes. Middle, squash like grape. You got to choose a side. You got to choose a side. And if you choose the devil, he doesn't keep his promises. And I think a lot of the Hollywood elite and some of the left are learning that. Search your hearts and see if you are like God. That's Joseph Smith asking you to examine whether your daily choices are moving you toward divinity or damnation. Exhausting. Here's some food for thought. Right here. Could the rise of fundamentalism be less about nostalgia or rebellion and more about a soul deep hunger for certainty, identity, and community in an era defined by doubt. I see a new World War II generation coming up. I see a lot of young people that I've never seen even in my time. Well, I grew up in the 70s and 80s. Well, I was in high school in the 80s, so I graduated in 89. So there were some pretty conservative people, but we weren't conscientiously conservative as teenagers. We just thought this is just the way it is. What do you fear most about hardlines and radical conviction? And what do you suspect you might be missing by always playing it safe? Now let's even go deeper. If fundamental Latter-day Saintism or Latter-day Saint doctrine is true, if we really are eternal beings on a path to godhood, if God really does speak through living prophets, if consecration and sacrifice really are necessary for exaltation, then it isn't everything else in life. Then isn't everything else in life essentially trivial by comparison? Brigham Young put it this way: our only confidence can be in God. Our only wisdom obtained from Him. And He alone must be our protector and our safeguard, spiritually and temporally, or we fail. I have a son right now. I tell him to pray. He was raised in the church, blessed the sacrament, passed the sacrament, almost went on a mission. I tell him to pray. He's in the depths of darkness right now and addiction. And I say, pray. And he says, HE double hockey sticks, no. There are people like that. And just because he's my son doesn't mean I have him around me. Heavenly Father cast a third of the hosts of heaven out. That's not just religious talk, brothers and sisters. That's a complete world view that makes God the center of everything. If you can't get on your knees and pray, if you cannot accept God as the author and finisher of not just your faith, but your life, goals and ambitions and everything you do in life, then you're going to have problems. You might be living by the grace of God and not know it, but you're not going to get as you're going to be lonely in the end until you accept those ordinances and principles and ordinances of the gospel. Economics, politics, family structure, personal choices. The ultimate question is, here to wrap it all up, here's the real question. Are we returning to fundamentalism right now? Do you see it? I see it. Look at Donald Trump. I love the guy. Okay, I'm not afraid to say it. I'm a conservative. I'm a constitutionalist. I'm not a Republican. I vote Republican right now, but I'm a constitutionalist. And I'm not always going to get political, brothers and sisters. But what's wrong with ideology? Isn't that religion? Isn't ideology and the gospel of Jesus Christ pretty much the same thing? I make no apologies. So are we returning to that out of fear or out of a desire for something unbreakable and unbreakable and eternal? What kind of community would we build if we took these principles seriously right now? All of them. Not just the comfortable ones. Are we ready for that kind of challenge? Are you ready for that kind of challenge? Or is comfort really the final god of modern life? Nah. Baloney. You want to hear what Joseph Smith said? He says, I have no enemies but for the truth's sake. I have no desire but to do all men good. I feel to pray for all men. We don't ask any people to throw away any good they have got. We only ask them to come and get more. But getting more means accepting more. More responsibility, more sacrifice, more commitment to principles that the world calls extreme. The question isn't whether fundamental Latter-day Saintism is socially acceptable or politically viable. The question is whether it's true. And if it is true, then everything else, your career, your comfort, your social standing, your personal preferences, becomes secondary to the demands of eternal truth. Stand up for what's right. Stand up for what's right. What are you willing to sacrifice for the possibility that it might all be real? And what are you afraid of losing if you truly commit to finding out?